I grew up in this church. Some of my youngest memories were coming to church with my Granny Winnie, who held down the back pew for many years. I went through confirmation class in this church. I was baptized in this church. I have a lot of fond memories of youth groups in this church. However, when I was a teenager and I thought that I knew everything, I had gotten a job in retail and a lot of Sundays I spent working. And I got out of the habit of coming to church, and I fell into a lifestyle that I'm not proud of. I didn't need to come to church anymore. I had started working at Elixir. I was looking to have my eyebrows waxed, and one of my coworkers had mentioned that there was a shop just down the road. That's where I met Amy. We embarked on a friendship after that. Of course, I had grown up with Jamie and John and Donna and Jim, and I guess it was 2001. Jamie was getting her master's at UT in education, and she would be down there for a year. I had decided that I wanted to finish my education. I wanted to get my bachelor's degree. So soon after I moved to Knoxville, we found out that John and Jennifer were going to have a baby. And we were all so excited. I mean, I have no idea what we did for entertainment before Jennifer got pregnant, because all of a sudden it was just, that's all we could talk about. That's all we could think about was this baby that was coming. And she was due in spring of 2002. Jennifer had a very difficult pregnancy. She is a tough old bird and managed to really, I've never seen stronger. She toughed it out, even though she went into labor very early on in her pregnancy. They kept stopping labor, and she continued to carry Kelsey until February 13th, and in the wee hours in the morning we got the phone call that Kelsey was coming. And so Jamie and I, looking like 2 out of 3 stooges, managed to pack the car and come to Crossville for the birth of Kelsey. We got there to the hospital. I can remember, I think I went back by myself to see Jennifer. John was back there. And it took every ounce of control and of strength that I had to not just burst into tears. She looked horrible. She was swollen. She was shaking, trembling uncontrollably. She was sweating. She just looked horrible. And I knew instantly that I already knew that the baby was early, but I knew that something was wrong. I can remember meeting Dr. Claypool in the hallway and saying, "You got to do something." And Dr. Claypool told me that she was going to take Kelsey by cesarean. So the family lined the hallway, and out comes John dressed in his surgical attire. After the cesarean was over, Jennifer was fine, and he introduced us to Kelsey Jenna. And we got to peek at her, as he carried her to the nursery. Once she got in the nursery, we of course were shoving and elbowing each other for a glimpse of her. And they cleaned her up and they started assessing her. And fortunately, by the grace of God, there was a student nurse there that I had happened to go to Rome State with. And he came out and told us that Kelsey was not breathing. Her lungs were underdeveloped because she was early. And that they were going to put a blow-by tent on her to give her more oxygen to see if I still was very unsettled. And it was fairly soon after that. They told us that they were going to send her to the neonatal intensive care unit at Children's Hospital in Knoxville. I can remember just being floored. Here was this, precious baby that we were so excited to meet, and, there was something wrong. I can remember John telling me that he wanted Melissa Andretti to drive him to Children's Hospital in Knoxville because he knew I would get him there the fastest because of my lead foot. And I can remember praying for God to give me the words and what I needed to comfort him. They took him back into the intensive care unit, and I saw Kelsey through the glass. They already had her down there, and they'd already started a little IV in her head. Really, the gravity of the situation really hit me when we got down there. And of course Jennifer could not go with us because she had to stay in the hospital in Crossville to recover for herself, which I can't imagine being separated from your baby only hours after giving birth.
I had shown up at the hospital after I found out that Jennifer had Kelsey and was fully expecting to see the new baby and Jennifer and, you know, the big happy family hanging around like you always do. And I remember walking into the room and there was no one there except Jennifer, and I was a little shocked. And when I found out that they had taken Kelsey and that John and everyone had followed, I remember sitting with Jennifer a little bit and talking with her, and I was heartbroken for her. And when I left, all that kept going through my mind was, you know, why God would do something like that to people that were so wonderful, taking me into their homes, and I'd make friendships with them, and you know, they were just all around good people. And so I decided I was going to pick a fight with him and started asking him. I demanded an answer. I wanted to know how he could do that. I finally just popped off and said, show me what you got. If this is a life that's supposed to be so good with you, you know, I'm going to give you a chance to show me, so show me. Over a course of a few months, I started seeing little things wooing me into a spiritual life. And of course, I didn't want to go alone. I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to go into a church, I want my son to be raised in a church. And we had visited a few churches in the area. None of them fit. None of them seemed right. Cameron would make it very known that he was not pleased with the people and did not like them.
Let me stop you there. Going back to when Kelsey was in the hospital, my end was kind of the opposite. I realized the gravity of the situation when we got to the hospital, and John was inside with Kelsey. Of course, we got there before the majority of the family did, and of course they wouldn't let me in. But I can remember thinking, I started praying. I actually started praying on the way up there, which was awkward for me because I hadn't done it in so long. And I can remember telling God that once I felt that gravity of the situation, I realized that I was one of those people. I was one of those people who only prayed when I needed something, and that hurt. And I can remember that making a deal with God. I said, God, please, if you will just save Kelsey and Jennifer and make them okay, then I'll do whatever it is you ask of me. I'll go back to church, and I began to make promises. And once Kelsey had left the NIC unit, about a week after she was born, and tiny as she could be, I decided that I needed to go back to church. Expecting full apocalyptic type things to happen when I walked in the doors, I went to church. I didn't know whether lightning would strike or earthquake would swallow the church. I just knew something horrible would happen because it had been so long since I had been there. And I can remember I had a plan. I was gonna sneak in, and I was gonna go to that back pew where my granny used to sit, and then I was gonna sneak back out at the last hymn. That was my plan. And I walked in the doors, and Ann Bristow spotted me immediately. And she came up to me and she grabbed me by the arms and she told me, she said, I'm so happy to see you. I've been praying for you. And I said, Miss Ann, it's been almost a decade since I've been in this church. And she said, it doesn't matter. She said, I knew you'd be back. I've been praying for you. And I knew that I was home. And Amy and I wanted to get together, and we're having a tough time getting a time when we could see each other. So I had invited Amy to come to church with me.
When she asked me, it was funny because I remember it. I was standing in the beauty shop. I'll never forget it. And I said, "Let's go and do something tonight. Let's get out. Let's go." And she said, "Well, I can't tonight. I'm over at John and Jennifer's, but," and she hesitated. And she said, "Why don't you come to church with me this Sunday?" She goes, "It's going to be a good Sunday." She said, "John's preaching." And I said, "Good one?" And she said, "Yeah, this is his first time." And I thought to myself, I have got to see this. This is something. So, asking Cameron on our way home, I said, "Well, what'd you think of today?" And I was fully expecting, another no. And he said, "Can we go back next week?" So we started going. It was approximately 2 weeks later. I went with Cameron to John and Jennifer's house, and Cameron and I accepted Christ in their kitchen. I had been a part of the church ever since, and that was 2002.
During this time, I discovered that I enjoyed going to church again. Through that, I gained a little courage, and I asked Mom started coming back to church with me. The good ones on there, kind of as a result of Kelsey's birth as well, came back to the church. Then I've invited friends, Leanne, Lonnie, and their family. Several other friends that I haven't quite gotten here yet, but I will. Have faith that God will move them to come. All because of this struggle, all because of this baby, all because of Kelsey. Amy and her son brought an entire pack of teenagers that
I had mentioned the other day to Melissa. When I started coming to church, of course, it was just Cameron and I, and it became a rule in our house if he had friends over that if it was on a Saturday night, Sunday morning we were going to church. So there were several boys that were in that church at any given moment, and one of them was, of course, Zach Stoltz. And then later on in the high school years, 2009, we got Mater, Travis, in our home. He was very excited and, still tries to come in now and then. But, there was always him or one were encouraging someone to come with us. And I told Melissa that I felt it was overwhelming when you think back and you start to realize how many people have come into this church just in that little bit of time in the last 12 years, all because a little girl decided to show up early. This last January, of course, I took the opportunity again to go to Resurrection with the youth and had the distinct honor to spend some more time with Kelsey. And it's something I hadn't done with her in a very long time. And I just kept thinking every time I saw her, every time I watched her be, silly and play and, jump around and have a good time. Every time I looked at her, I just kept hearing that song from City Harmonics, City on a Hill. God used that moment and literally turned her into a city on a hill.
I'm Melissa.
I'm Amy. This is our story. Is it your story?
Hi, my name is Kelsey, and my story is being written, and I can't wait to hear yours.